All right, shalom. Shalom, Israel. With the Israelite School, Universal Practical Knowledge, started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander General Yohana. We're not affiliated with any other Israelite group nor any other Christian organization. So now tonight's class is the Lashawan Qadash class, all right? This is the Hebrew class. The Hebrew class is something very important. I say it every class. I'm going to say it every Friday when I teach the Hebrew class. Hebrew is important. It's a part of your culture. It's a part of who you are. And so if you don't know who you are supposed to be, if you don't know how to speak the language you're supposed to be speaking, that can cause a lot of problems. Like what we need to realize, black people, we have an absolute identity crisis in the black community. Simply by not knowing your identity, you're really not going to know. Okay, by not knowing your identity, you can get very lost because every human, it's human nature to crave identification. I don't know if anyone understands that, but we have to identify as something. It's nature that you have to identify as something. Just like an example, if you were some human trapped in the woods, and you'll end up being something like of the woods. You would look at something, you will watch how something is done, and you would mimic that very thing. It could be the bears, the wolves, the foxes, the squirrels, whatever, right? Because you need to identify with something naturally. The problem is because our people do not have an identity, we choose to identify ourselves with other nations of people. And by identifying ourselves with other nations of people, we end up serving their gods. You understand? We end up following their culture and their customs, right? And by doing so, we upset God. And we make the Most High angry by doing those things because we did not know that we are actually God's chosen people and we are the Israelites. And we have our own identity that requires us to follow and obey God and keep his laws, statutes, and commandments. We need to realize that. And our identity is everything, absolutely everything. All right. Let's get my favorite scripture. I always pull this first. So Nehemiah. Like this is why Nehemiah throughout this is why Prophet Nehemiah, all right, he was during chapter 13, he was going to war with the nation damn near and kicking people out the temple and correcting everything because we started to identify ourselves with another nation of people. And by identifying ourselves with another nation or race of people, like I said, we end up following their customs. Like, for an example, interracial marrying is not the custom of the Israelites. We were never allowed to go outside of our nation and marry another. You were never supposed to get Becky. You was never supposed to get Skylar. You was never supposed to get Stephanie. You were supposed to get Kiki. You understand? You were supposed to get Quasia. All right, you understand? You were supposed to get Kyasia. That's who you were supposed to get. You weren't supposed to get anything else but that. You weren't supposed to get Ling. You weren't supposed to get Yin Yang. All right? You weren't supposed to get any of that. You wasn't supposed to eat. You wasn't supposed to get Ugawa, Ufefu. None of that. You were supposed to marry your nation of people. That's why Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 20 says in verse 23, Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 23, in those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. These were the other nations because we were going through an absolute identity crisis and serving other gods. We at this time, this was an identity crisis simply because we were choosing to follow the gods and the culture of another nation of people. And because of so, we were marrying their women, and the Lord was against it. Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 24. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod. All right. this was the language of another nation of people, specifically the people from Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language. Meaning, because we decided, like this is why it's so important to have an identity. Shalom, everybody. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Book a thumb to the brothers, and Shalom Yahweh Shemar Allah Sun Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai to the sisters. Like this is why it was so important to have an absolute identity. You were not allowed to not have an identity. All right. You were supposed to identify who God wanted you to identify with, and it was with your own nation of people by serving Him and keeping His laws, statutes, and commandments. And now, because we chose not to identify the way we were supposed to identify ourselves. Now, everybody knows why I keep saying identify, because in this day and age, identification is such a big thing. People identify as being a squirrel, a zebra now, a fox, a wall, a couch, a little boy, a little girl, an old man, whatever. This day and age, a lot of people just want to identify with things. And then they're making it a law that you have to accept these people when they decide that they want to identify as a goddamn share. All right, makes no sense at all, but that's just what it is. So I'm using the word identify purposely because we chose to identify ourselves with another nation of people by serving their gods. All right, and by following their customs and their culture. You understand? When God wanted us to identify as being an Israelite, which meant serving and keeping God's laws, statutes, and commandments, and by not identifying by serving the Lord, by not identifying by keeping God's laws, statutes, and commandments, we end up losing who we are. All right, you start to lose your identity naturally. Like it wasn't magic on how we lost our identity. It wasn't like some magical event. Because we were purposely choosing to serve other nations of people and their gods and follow their customs and culture, how we lost our identity. All right, this is how it happened. And eventually we lost who we were. We started to lose our dress code, our dietary, right, the way we ate, and we also lost the way we spoke and how we spoke and what we spoke. The language that we spoke, we lost so much. It was such a problem even in a time of Nehemiah, all right, because it said it could not speak in the Jews' language. We couldn't speak Hebrew because we chose to identify ourselves with another nation of people, but according to the language of each people. But we were able to identify, but based off of how we spoke and based off of the language which we were speaking, we were able to identify with Ammon and Moab as well as Ashdod. And that was a huge problem with Nehemiah, which was a huge problem, of course. It was a huge problem with God, which made it a huge problem for Prophet Nehemiah. You guys understand that, right? God has a problem with us not knowing how to speak Hebrew. God wants you to know how to speak the Lashawan Qadash. That's why we have these classes every Friday, because God wants you to learn how to speak your language and how to come back to your culture and your heritage. All right, that's important. All right, and it says, and this is what Nehemiah did. All right, let's pay very close attention to exactly what Nehemiah did. It says, and I contended with them and cursed them and smote certain of them and plucked off their hair and made them swear by God, saying, ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons and for yourselves. Like this what makes these fake Israelites so crazy. And these Christians, they're all Christians. I'm gonna say Christians. So crazy. These Christians defend that the Lord is okay with a man going outside of his nation and marrying outside of his nation. Listen, put those Edomite girls away. Fight those demons and stop having sex with those Beckys, man, and those blonde-haired, blue-eyed devils. Stop. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed devils. Just cut it out. Burnett, whatever. Cut it out. And Caucasian, cut it out. Just cut it out. Leave them alone. All right. Stop making these excuses. God for sure did not want you to go outside of your nation of people. It says it right here. Specifically, this is talking about Ashdod, which is the so-called Jewish man, Moab, which is the so-called Chinese, and Ammon, which is the so-called Japanese. Stop. These are other nations of people that the Lord did not want you to go and marry. That's why Nehemiah was fighting them and beating them the hell up and pulling the hair out of their heads. The Lord was absolutely against this nonsense. All right? Absolutely against it. If anybody has any questions, y'all just let me know as well. Put it into the live chat. So like you for being a little tardy as well, not just the class, but for those brothers and sisters that wanted those notes. I just sent the email. So if you want to go check your email, you should have gotten a notification to your emails of all the study material. Y'all just let me know if y'all did not receive it. If anyone that is new to class that did not get that information, y'all just let me know. I have plenty of study material that was given to me just to one day teach the Hebrew class every Friday. I've been teaching the Hebrew class since 2018. That's when I started teaching the Hebrew class. All right, I started teaching the Hebrew class since 2018. I had that study material for a very long time. So just let me know if anyone has not got it yet. All right, and if you do want this, study material, you just let me know, and that will be taken care of. All right. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and share this video. And go ahead and make it public on Facebook as well. Oh well, goddamn okay, Khan. So, Salaki, sir, can I get a breakdown on what the four beasts represent in Daniel 7, Daniel chapter 7, verse 3 through 7? That is a breakdown. Now that right there is a breakdown. Khan, give me 1 second. Khan, I might have to save that question for Wednesday's class. But just give me a second. Let me see. All right, I got to dig deep into my archives. All right. At the minimum, for sure, the beast represent the different nations. All right, for sure, they represent the different nations. One of them is the Persian and Medes. The other one was the Babylonian. All right, the other one was the Syrian, and then one of them would be today's captivity. But let me just double check that out. That right there, like I said, that's a breakdown right there, Rock. Con, no sweat out, no sweat out. Let me see if I can dig real deep real quick, guys. All right, let me dig real deep for that. But for sure, I remember briefly. We'll get it on the screen too, just for time. Just give me a second, all right? Let me see. Shalom, Lord in Christ says. Let me look at it. Annual. Right, Khan. All right. So here we go. Let me see. All right. Let me get on the screen for you. All right. Let me see. Okay. So I'm gonna answer the brother's question now. Officer, this is the question of Officer Mataza Al Karat. He wanted to break down real quick from Daniel chapter 7 verse 3 through 7. All right, and so I'm gonna go through it real quick so we can get through it. I'm gonna go through it real quick. All right, because I want to be able to get into the class. Okay, so any other brother wants to take notes on this, you can. The real thing, what you really want to know about Daniel chapter 7 verse 3 are what the four beasts are. All right, you want to know who those four beasts are because it's going to help you understand what's being said in the book of Revelation. I believe these same beasts come back up in Revelation, and then a greater beast emerges, and that's referring to, to the daughter of Babylon, which is America. All right, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so let's see, but let's break that down real quick. So you got and four great beasts came up from the sea, um, diverse, diverse one from another. All right, diverse one from another. So they were different. They were all different beasts. All right. These beasts are not literal. These beasts are. This is a vision. So this is supposed to be more so. You wanna. It's metaphoric, right? Just like in Revelations, it's metaphoric because not this is not meant for everybody to understand. All right, not meant for everybody to understand. It's like Revelation. Revelation was written in code. It was written in code. It was written metaphorically speaking, so not everyone could understand what the hell John the Revelator that was in a prison in Patmos, all right, which was a prison on an island surrounded by water, because a island is surrounded by water on all four sides. That's the island, that's Patmos, all right. That's definitely Patmos. So let's get it. So you got Daniel 7 and 4. The first was like a lion and had eagle wings. All right, so the first beast was like a lion. All right, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. All right, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth. So his wings were plucked. All right, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon. So now, when it says the land, because first they ruled. At first, you had wings. This is talking about the Babylonian Empire. All right, the lion is the Babylonian Empire. It's talking about Babylon. Right. This is during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. All right, that was Babylon. The wings were plucked. It was lifted up from the earth. All right, no more in rulership, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. All right, what's like, and a man's heart was given to it. All right, it was plucked from the earth, wings were plucked thereof. All right, it's like it, not taken from rulership. So like it. So when it says, in the eagle and had eagle wings, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth. So now, even though it was high, now it's on the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Now they're in power. This is talking about the Babylonian Empire, in rulership and in power. There's the lion. All right, let's look at the next. That's the lion. So remember, the lion, Babylon. All right. So the lion is Babylon. Next we have right here, which is the bear. All right. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. This bear, and it raised up itself on one side. So this was the Persian and Medes Empire. This was the Persian and Medes Empire, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side. So it raised itself up, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. All right. So it had three ribs in between the teeth, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. All right. The Persian and Medes ruled, and they devoured. Just like any other heathen nation that comes into power, they devour, they murder, they steal, they kill. They're absolutely ruthless. All right. The Persian to me is this was like the East Indians. All right. That's Elam. I believe the Persian come from Elam. With, I don't know if you guys remember watching 300, but that's your Xerxes and stuff like that. All right. Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. And after this I beheld, lo, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it four wings and a fowl. The beast had also four heads, and dominion was given to it. So power was given to this beast. All right. All right. And this leopard is referring to the Greek Empire. The leopard is referring to the Greek Empire. All right. It was given dominion. Also four heads. All right. It was given power and dominion. That's who the leopard is. All right. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and had 10 horns. All right, this is referring to the Roman Empire. All right, this is referring to the Roman Empire. You understand? Let me see. Let's get Revelation real quick. Where is that at? Revelation 13? Yeah, Revelation 13 is what talks about it. Yeah, Revelation 13 is what talks about all that stuff too as well. All right. Let me know if that at least gets you through of understanding what the beasts are on Wednesday class. Ask that question again, and Captain will go into more detail. I cannot to break this down all the way. All right, it's a lot. It's a lot, and I may take up majority of the Hebrew class, which I personally do not want to do. I want to at least go over the alphabet and a little bit of grammar today. But let me know if that kind of helps you at least with knowing who the beasts are. All right. When you ask Captain this question on Wednesday class, all right, he's most likely going to break it down to you by using Revelation as well. You'll get even bigger breakdown. Like you'll be able to get a bigger breakdown and understand Revelation 13, and you'll learn all the what all the beasts and all the 10 horns will do. Con. So just know that's what, okay, Con. Those what the beasts are, all right, and those things in between are the beasts. They do symbolize like how they ran in power and all that. But Captain will go over that. Captain will definitely go over that. That's a lot. That's a lot, and also, truthfully too, I would have to go back into my notes to read. I took notes, but I do not have my notes here. All right. I do not have my notes in front of me. All right. That's in those notes that I have of Daniel 7 and Revelation 13. Very brief in my head. Very brief in my head. But they're in my notes in a very big box in my car because I have nothing but notes and notebooks from 2017. A bunch of notes and books. All right. Con. So it's a huge break, and I do not want to give you the improper breakdown. That's one thing that we don't do in the Israelite School Universe of Practical Knowledge. If you do not know something, you just shut your mouth and be quiet. Do not be ashamed that you may not know something now, because it's just you not knowing something now. Everybody gets that, right? For any officers out there, all right, you want to hold on to that standard. Any troopers that want to be an officer one day, you want to hold on to that standard. Any young men that desire to be troopers and one day officers, you want to hold on to that standard of just closing your mouth if you don't know something. Don't say nothing at all. All right, it's a very good practice to do. All right, something very good to do. You don't want to say anything wrong because you may confuse a brother. You know, some brothers believe they may understand something, but it's not actually what that means, and they end up just cutting themselves without even realizing it. If you don't know, it's fine to say you don't know and moving on. Moving on. Just move on. Just move the hell on. If you don't know, don't say nothing. Just be like, I'll come back to you after I ask the question. All right. And so what I'm not going to do in tonight's class is give y'all the wrong information, but the beast are the beast. All right. And then you'll get an even bigger breakdown how it ties into America being created in Revelation 13. I can remember that much. In Revelation 13, I don't know if y'all remember the dragon with the 10 horns, the 10 heads, and all that stuff and all that. If y'all remember that scripture in Revelation 13, this Daniel 7 is a precept to that to understand what the hell Revelation 13 is talking about. All right. And then that new beast that's created, of course, you're going to have to know, right? You're living in that time of that dragon. All right. You're living in that time. That new after that is America. Right. That when what am I referring to? When it says her like when the wound was healed and all that, that's Christianity, you know, It's a lot. It's a lot. If you don't remember it offhand because of you don't, that's why we take notes back here. Sometimes you're gonna have to go into your notes so I can teach. Don't be ashamed of doing that either. Trust me. Uh, I've been I've been doing this just for a little bit. There's no shame in going back into your notes and back into your records to tell the brother the right thing. The general does it. The generals do it. The captains do it. So why not you? Why wouldn't you do it? I don't I don't comprehend why any brother wouldn't. You understand? All right, it's standard practice. So just keep that in mind. Most High in Christ. I see the comment come. Most High in Christ. So make sure y'all brothers understand that for future references. Don't be ashamed to go back into your notes to figure something out. That's why you have notes. That's why we have the Bible. So we can go back to our records to say these things. Or this would have been completely forgotten. You just would have had a bunch of brothers in one area wondering who the hell did what. All right. You got that one, you ever heard one of those old timers out there and they swore up and down, they did this with Malcolm and all this other type of stuff when there's no record of it and they just reminiscing and we don't know what the hell they talking about. Don't be that brother. Take notes. Take notes. That's why the scribes were there. John, Matthew, Luke. That's why they took notes. They took notes of every event that Christ went through. There was records of everything. Write things down. That's literally the spirit of the Lord, is to write things down. Write it down. Write it the hell down. But all right, enough on that. Let's get to the alphabet. But yeah, Khan priest, Salakia on that again. All right. But that was a quick breakdown that I can that I can do. At least quickly so we can get to some Hebrew. All right, so what we got right here is your ah. All right, you got your ah in the Assyrian, then you have your ah in the ancient. And you got your ba. You got your ba in the Assyrian, then you have your ba in the ancient. Your ba. Next is you have your ga. You have your ga in the Syrian, and you got your ga in the ancient. Next, you have your da. You have your da in the Syrian, then you have your da in the ancient. Also, if any brother also has any other questions they would like to be answered, don't you can also put it into the live chat as well. If you have any questions on the scripture too as well, you can. Try not to give me a Daniel 7. No shots intended to Officer Mataza. No shots intended. But try, if any other brother has any other questions about scriptures, try to give me one that I do not have to go into my notes and give a whole another class breakdown. All right. If you do have any other questions, meaning, Bubble Quashah, if it's a Genesis breakdown, save it for Wednesday class. If it's a Revelation breakdown, you may just want to save that to Wednesday class. If it's a Daniel breakdown, you may just want to save it for a Wednesday breakdown class. Try to have some discretion with the scripture you're choosing to get broken down. It may seem some scriptures may just seem all complex to you at the moment, and they actually may well just be. All right, and then some may not as be. So use your discretion wisely. I'm just joking around. Of course, you can ask, and of course, I'll just let you know if I'm able to do it or not. All right, I'll be able to answer your questions, or y'all can save it until um until Wednesday class. Oh, now you Tawab priest. I'm just pulling your leg. I'm just pulling your leg. I'm just being a little funny. You Tawab, right? You Tawab. Um, so you have your Da in the Assyrian, and you have your Da in the ancient. Next, you have your Ha in the Assyrian, and you have your Ha in the ancient. Next, you have your Wa. You have your Wa in the Assyrian, then you have your Wa in the ancient. Salaki. Next, you have is your Za. You have your Za in the Assyrian, then you have your Za in the ancient. Next, you have your Kha. You have your Kha in the Assyrian, then you have your Kha in the ancient. Now remember, it's pronounced Kha. Right? This is what y'all want to practice on the most. All right? It's your Kha. If your Kha. Right? If you are an officer in the UPK, you have to know the Hebrew. Right? If you want to be an Israelite in general, and you consider yourself to be an Israelite, you have to know the Hebrew. Never stop studying the Hebrew. All right? Because if you don't use it, you will lose it. I promise you. If you don't use it, you will lose it. You don't want to lose it. So practice. This is your cha, your cha, right? Your cha, your cha. You want to make sure you practice it. Your cha, cha, cha. All right. Of course, it doesn't matter how loud the cha is, as long as you're cha. All right. We can still hear it cha. Because of course, when you're speaking it, sometimes you may not hit the cha so hard. You might give it a cha, something like that, just to let we'll be able to hear the difference. We know for sure you're saying a cha, not a ka. All right. Make sure you use the to let us know you're not saying ka. You're saying cha. Yeah, cha. Next you have your ta. This is your ta. You have your ta in the Syrian, and then you have your ta in the ancient. Next is you have your ya. You have your ya in the Syrian, Salaki. Then you have your ya in the ancient. Next is your ka. You have your ka in the Syrian, and you have your ka in the ancient. Now focus on that ka in the Syrian, right? You see one that says found at the end of a word? Like that's how you know that this ka is at the end of a word. All right, that's the ka that's going to be found at the end of the word. You do not want to confuse it. Now this is your la. You got your la in the Syrian, then you have your la in the ancient. Next is your ma. You have your ma in the Syrian, and you have your ma in the ancient. Now remember, you see that ma? That's the ma that's found at the end of a word. All right, all right. That's the ma that you found at the end of a word. Keep that in mind. Next we have is your na. You have your na in the Syrian, then you have your na in the ancient. Once again, here's another letter. You see that arrow? That's what a na is going to look like, found at the end of a word. All right. Salakia, all the alphabet means something like the he and etc. Khan. Each letter does have a meaning to it. Um, I'll say give me about a week or two, and I'll get all that information for y'all. All right, like the qua comes from another word and it means trap. The door, not door, the letter da meaning for the laugh. It comes from the door. If that's what you're referring to, like Allah from Allah, and it's written the way it is because it looks exactly like the ox. You wanna you wanna keep that in mind. Con. Okay, con. Like all those things do mean something, and just give me like a week or two, and I'll get all that information. I believe Captain Katazar broke that down, but I'll make sure I'll get all that information for y'all as well. All right. You have your sub. You have your sub in the Syrian. You got your sub in the ancient. Next, you have the letter I. You have your I in the Syrian. Then you have your I in the ancient. And just like the brother was just asking, like this letter I break that down at least every class, at least with this one. Right? The reason why the I in the ancient is circular like the way it is because it literally and the pictographic part of our language is what the brother was asking. Like they actually mean something, and that's where they would come from. That's what they would be drawn as, and eventually they became characteristic, like what we see on this board right now. All right. So that's why the letter I is pronounced the letter I, because it was literally your eye. That's why it's circular, literally your eye. Next is your pa. You have your pa in the Syrian, and then you have your pa in the ancient. You have your taza, all right? You have your taza in the Syrian, and you have your taza in the ancient. Next is you have your qua. You have your qua in the Syrian, and you have your qua in the ancient. This is your ra in the Syrian, and this is your ra in the ancient. All right, and try to remember the ra. It sounds like it looks like an R, so you can kind of see how it's a ra. All right, the alphabet can be very easy to remember as long as you practice it every day. The Bible talks about rehearsing the righteous acts. All right. Next is your sha. You have your sha in the Assyrian, and you have your sha in the ancient. And next is your tha. You have your tha in the Syrian, and then you have your tha in the ancient. All right. So today we're going to kind of go over object pronouns. All right, and then we're going to go over ah. We're going to go over object pronouns and a little bit of ah. Okay. So we're going to start with the object pronouns. So now, all right. So you have object pronouns. Now, object pronouns will always be used in conjunction with verbs, meaning if you have a verb and you're trying to create a sentence, all right, and of course, let's say an object pronoun is required to use, all right, it's going to be used in conjunction with verbs. You're not going to use it in conjunction with nouns. And the reason why I say that too as well, because the way your possessive pronouns are, the way you make, okay, the way possessive pronouns are just like how the object pronouns. They sound exactly the same, but the difference between the two is one are attached. One is attached to a noun, and the other one's attached to a verb. All right. And so now the first object pronoun we have right here is your ya. Your ya in the Syrian, you see that, and you got your ya in the ancient, and your ya is me. All right. Next is you have your ka. All right, you have your ka in the Syrian, the ka in the ancient. Now your ka is your you. All right, your ka is your you. That's the you as the object pronoun. Remember, all of these things are going to be used in conjunction with verbs. So when you're trying to create these sentences, all right, when you're trying to create these sentences, you want to be very aware. All right, be very aware of these things. All right, only with verbs. And there's a way to use it in conjunction with verbs as well as what we're going to practice with and have examples on. All right, we're going to get there, but I want you to get familiar and I want you to take notes on this. All right, so your ya is your me and your ka is your you. We're going to revisit all of this again, and then we're going to do some practice examples. Next is you have your wa. So if you're using a verb, you're going to be using in conjunction with wa. All right, wa means him. All right. Next is you have your ha. You have your ha in the Syrian. You have your ha in the ancient as an object pronoun, which means her. Means her. Next is your nawa. You have your nawa. So you have your nawa as an object pronoun in the Syrian. You have your nawa as an object pronoun in the ancient to the left. And your nawa means us. All right, us. Nawa means us. Next is you have your calm. Your calm. All right. You have your calm in the Syrian, then you have your calm in the ancient. And calm meaning y'all or you all or you plural in the masculine tense. Calm. Calm. Next is you have your Khan. That's your Khan. You have your Khan in the Syrian, and you have your Khan in the ancients. And your Khan is y'all or you all plural, but in the feminine. Now this is the feminine tense right here. Now remember, it's the feminine tense. So what you'll notice throughout the Hebrew, right? What you guys are going to notice. It's like the pronouns will normally be used before the verb. Con. Okay, so the object pronouns would be used okay, and they're going to be, and I'm gonna go over that. That's a good question. So all object pronouns or even possessive pronouns. Now, object pronouns are usually in used in conjunction directly with with verbs. All right, with verbs. Object pronouns strictly with verbs, but they come after the verb. All right, and then you have possessive pronouns, which are used in conjunction with nouns, and they come right after the noun, and they're attached to the word that is being used in conjunction with. And shalom, Yahweh Shema Allah Bashim Yahweh Shah, says Most High in Christ. So that's what that is. Now remember, like your cons and all that stuff right there, like anything in the feminine tense, dealing with these pronouns, they usually just add a na at the at the bottom of it, and at the back of it to make it feminine. So you'll know, like for instance, con, it's a na. You know for sure now it's feminine. It'll be just like that. All right. Next is you have your ma. All right, which means them. Last but not least, you have your na. All right. Now remember how I was explaining. Usually, if there's a na at the end of it, or just a na, and dealing with object pronouns or even possessive pronouns, it's a feminine pronoun. It's a feminine pronoun. So your ha and anything with a na at the end of it is usually a feminine pronoun. This dealing with pronouns though, not words. Or like nouns, nothing. This is more so referring to the pronouns. All right. So you want to be aware that that's a way of to signify something being feminine. Kind of a con. So after con. Oh, okay. So okay. I see what you're saying. So I'm going to get an example on the board soon. Once because I just jumped from the object pronouns, and so now I'm going to go to how to use "I." Because if you want to learn object pronouns, you're going to have to actually learn "off" as well. Because there's a way to use object pronouns properly with verbs. But to answer you at face value, the verb comes first, then the pronoun, and then they're attached. So let's say I want to say he said, right? In English is he said, but in Hebrew is said he. Everybody get it? Most High in Christ. Most High in Christ. Khan. Most High in Christ. So let's get it. So now we have something called ah. Did I put something here? But there we go. So now we have something called ah. So how to use ah. Now you're going to see ah a lot. Let me give y'all an example of where you guys are going to see ah. We may just see it right here. If not, I'm gonna go to one that I know for sure. But I would like to use another one besides that. Where's the verb Aisha? Aisha. Well, let me see. Malak Yasha Allah. Right. That's King Solomon. Shalom. Malak Yasha Allah. Alright. Other nations. That's Gart. Gayam. Malak. Kamal. Malak. Well, what did they use to say made? Should be Alahayu. Alahayim. Al. Call. Yasha Allah. Over all Israel. I see the sun. All right. I mean, yes, sun. All right. Now let me see. Does this come from the sun? The root word is Nathan, but it's Yethan in this case. Hold on. I believe I've seen this before. Give me a second. I'm gonna look it up for y'all. Means to give. Right, to give. Sometimes I guess it could be used to make or constitute. All right, to make or constitute. Not okay. So there's a verb meaning Aisha, meaning to literally make, but sometimes different verbs also mean different things. That's why Blue Letter Bible is so important to use as well, so you can truly understand what's being said. And so here's another. Now this may not be an example of but this is though, which we're about to go over. This is a good example. So this right here is I. All right. That what meaning him, but that oth in the beginning, that doesn't mean him. The root is oth itself. All right. It's a particle. And this is what oth is. Oth is a sign of the definite direct object, not translated in English, but generally preceding and indicating the accusative. So it's just a way. Oth is a way in order to understand what the direct object is. Okay. And so be reading the English. What I'm reading right there at the bottom, let's get it on track. So you see this sentence right here? This is where I'm gonna stop at. I might read the whole thing and get into examples, but I'm gonna read. But you see this right here? And God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him, right? So the nevertheless, even him, all right. That athwa has to be there for him to let you know that this is him is the direct object being used within that sentence being created. All right. I'm gonna break it down to y'all just in a bit, but let me show y'all. So once again, what you have here is wa and yathanawa. All right, yathana, yathanawa, not yathun, not yathun hawa. All right, it's yathanawa, and it's rooting from yathun. All right, well, Salaki, I made a mistake there. It is hawa. It is hawa, which is referring to and made him. All right, wa yathun hawa, wa yathun hawa. All right, and that hawa is referring to the him. All right, that ha is referring to the him. If we go down, it should give me the grammar of that since I clicked on it. Give me third. Here we go. Okay, come on now. So it's a suffix meaning it comes in the back. All right, singular, masculine. All right, it's being spoken in third person. All right. All right. That's why it says Hebrew suffix pronominal third person masculine singular. So if you're speaking in third person, grammatically speaking, since you're speaking in third person, meaning someone's narrating this. Speaking in third person, meaning you're narrating this, but you're speaking about yourself, but you're narrating this. Does that make sense? That's what third person is. All right. So keep that in mind. All right, so that ha is the front of the wa because that's how you would write it in third person. If you were speaking in first person, all right, there's another way to write it. And of course, first person is just you speaking. So if you're just speaking and you're not speaking in third person, all right, there's a way to say it and write it. All right, but we can go over that just a little later. But everybody does understand at face value what I mean by third person and first person. Like there's a difference. So, okay, if I want to say the same thing in first person, all right, I'm only saying, I would only say what your son was. What your son was. I don't have to add the hawa. Does everybody get it? What your son was. I would only say what your son was. Because I would just be saying he gave him. I'm not referring, because that's saying what your son. I would just say what your son was, not what your son hawa. Does everybody kind of get what I'm saying? Just let me know. Now let me see. Okay, somewhat. Okay, so think of third person as someone like, because this story is being told, like when he's saying, and he was made king over all Israel, Nehemiah at that point wasn't talking about himself. All right. And the connectors do, well, okay, so like you said, the Assyrian doesn't have the connectors, so it's just a repetitive memorization thing with the Syrian. So actually, to be exact, none of the Hebrew has connectors. We purposely put the connectors there just just so you know, just for brothers can learn, and then it becomes the memorization thing that you're referring to, regardless if it's Assyrian or ancient. If I pull up an ancient Bible right now, you would get the very same thing. You'll see the very same thing with no connectors. Only thing difference is you're not going to see those vowel points there, and we ignore those vowel points because, of course, we know that that's not the real Hebrew. All right. But to go back to what for young man Kenny, so a third person is like you could either be referring to like a person of a story. Because remember, Nehemiah is talking about King Solomon in this case. So King Solomon is the individual, he's the one being spoken about. Nehemiah is no longer talking about himself, so now it's in third person. And so to let you know that this is being in third person and let you know that you're talking about somebody else when writing, all right, or telling a story about someone, you would add the hawa, that her in front of that object pronoun. All right. And because that him is not a direct object in that case, to let you know that it's, you know, you don't have to, there's no direct object being indicated in that case. So what your son hawa is how you would say it in third person. All right. It's a grammar thing. It's really just grammar. And grammar is something very important to understand. It's almost like you have to start from like pretty much start from scratch and really and we have to focus on grammar, and that's pretty much what I'm trying to teach. Lately I've been trying to focus on grammar because grammar is something very important, because once you start reading the Hebrew, you want to be aware of these things. You want to be aware of the grammar that's being written. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of want to be aware of that. You want to be on top of that. So now, when we go back to it, right? So you got where your son Hawa, Alahaya Malak al Ka Yashala, meaning, and he made him over all Israel. He made him king over all Israel. Then you have your Gam, all right? Your Gam, in this case, meaning nevertheless, even. All right. So when we go to our Strongs, I'm trying to also show you how you can learn by using Blue Letter Bible. So you have your Gam. You see, it literally says Gam too. It's your Gam. All right. And Gam also means also. Now, this is what you're mostly going to see it mean. That's why it's the first definition. But in other cases, it's going to mean in other ways too. So also, even, indeed, moreover, yea. Like Gam can mean those things if it's written in the sentence. Of course, if we go down, we should eventually see nevertheless. All right. So let's see if it's written down here. All right. So let me see. It doesn't say nevertheless, but this is what it is right here. Neither, nor, nevertheless. All right. And here you go. Or even. See how you see those words right there? So if we go back, we put Gam. That's why it says nevertheless, even. Nevertheless, even. All right. Nevertheless still means neither or even. All right. Nevertheless, even. That's why Gam is there. Nevertheless, Gam. Now, because you can't just put a wa there. All right. Because you can't just put a wa there to mean him. Now, because there's no verb here. You see how there's no real verb here being used before? Okay. You see how this is a verb. And because it's a verb, the hawa, that wa meaning him, that wa right there meaning him, right? It's connected to the verb itself. And so you don't have to use in conjunction with it. Because now we know for sure this is the him and it's not a direct object within this matter. But because there's no verb being used here, all right, in this case scenario, you have to put wa. So everyone knows it's a direct object being used. Does everybody understand that? You guys kind of understand what I'm getting at with that little small dilemma? And we're going to go over it too as well. But I just want to make sure everybody understands it at face value. Most High in Christ. So now that's a good example, all right, of how to use all right. It's to show you a direct object. Now, that's how oth would look like if it's used as a direct object with an object pronoun attached to it. That's why that was in the middle, but it's still going to look like this. Your oth, all right, your oth. All right, this is how a regular oth would look like if it did not have a possessive pronoun attached to it, but it's still pronounced oth either way. And oth is used in conjunction with direct objects, examples, personal pronouns, and the, like the rock, the earth, the heavens, like in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, oth is being used, right? Bara'ah shout, bara'ah, right? You understand? Bara'ah shep, bara'ah, wahalim ata, ratata, at hashamaya. Hashamaya wa ata, ratata. All right? Something like that in that example. That's Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 in the Hebrew. And off will always be before the direct object, no matter what. Meaning, whatever the direct object is within the sentence, right? Whatever the direct object is in the sentence is always going to be before the off itself is going to be before the direct object itself. It's never going to be after, because then if it's after, it could be insinuating a direct object down a line that does not belong there. All right. Off has to come before the direct object because the off is so you can identify the direct object. So when you're speaking Hebrew, let's say you're creating sentences and you're formulating sentences and words and etc. etc. If there's an off in front of it, now you're going to know. All right. Now you're going to know. Okay, this brother said off arataza. Arataza meaning earth. I know it's. I'm sorry. Ha arataza meaning this is the earth. This is how you know I'm talking about the earth. Because Arataza also means what? If Arataza means earth, it can also mean what? Land. All right. In the Hebrew, Arataza also means land. So if I say this is the earth or the land, I'm referring to this is the earth. I'm not talking about this any land mass here. I'm talking about this is the entire earth. And so I have to put Arataza. So when I'm speaking to someone in Hebrew and I say, hey, Aka, oh, he's talking about the earth. He's just not talking about any kind of land. This is going to help you identify the direct object. It's going to let you know that I'm not talking about any kind of land. I'm talking about the land. In that case, I'm referring to the entire earth. If I'm referring to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Does everybody understand that? Most High in Christ. All right, so everybody understands there. So now let's get to what Ach would look like with personal pronouns with Ach. So personal pronouns are just your object pronouns. All right, Ach, you. All right. Personal pronouns are just your object pronouns. So if we go back to Nehemiah, all right, this is a Ach used with a personal pronoun, specifically him, which is that wa right there. Your Ach, right? This is your root Ach. This is the Ach that we just went over, the regular Ach. But this is what a Ach is going to look like with that wa in between, in conjunction with a personal pronoun or an object pronoun. All right, a personal pronoun. The object pronoun is the type of personal pronoun, and this is still pronounced as ah. It's not awat. It's pronounced ah. It's still pronounced as ah. So if we go back, this is what you're going to see here. One second. All right, so now these are your personal pronouns with ah. So you have ah ya, which is your me. You have your ah ka, which is your you. You have your ah wa, which is your him. You have your ah ha, which is your her. You have your ah nawa, which is your us. You have your ah come, which is you plural but in the masculine. Then you have your Khan, you plural, but in the feminine. Then you have your Athma, that's your them, but in the masculine. Then you have your Athna, which is your them, but in the feminine. So make sure you guys put this into your notes. I want you guys to know these things because remember, it's grammar. If I go back to the thing, you're going to see it. It's not that you're not going to see it. You want to try to remember what all these things are because you're gonna have to read it just like this. You're gonna read it hala wa al Allah, it's like Allah, khata'a shalama malak yasha Allah, wa bagarium, it's like wa bagarium, harabium la'ah, haya malak kamawa. All right, like a kamawa or a hawab, it's like a wa'ah awab. That means I think that means to love right there. That's ahab, right? Beloved. See? Ahab. You see how I was able to really you see how I was able to see the verb and just know that was love? I don't know if you guys noticed, right? Like when I'm reading, you want to try to get familiar like this. You see how I was just reading and I was able just to pick up just like as if because I really tried to make Hebrew my second language. So when I'm reading, I can pick up certain words and I know exactly what they mean. All right. I can look at the Hebrew word and eventually you're just going to know what it means. You're going to be like, oh, that's love. Now I knew that was the word ahab. I seen it, but it's ahawab because it's being that's a present tense conjugation. That were between. So of course, when we do it, there's two ways you can present tense something. All right. You can do it between the first and second letter, or you can do it between the last two letters of the word. All right. It just depends on how long the word is. All right. Or it actually doesn't matter. As long as it's the last two letters, you can put the Y between the last two letters of the word, or you put the letters between the first two. When we speak, I'd rather you put it between the first two. It's just easier. When reading, you'll see that, of course, this is already written way before we were even born. So this is how they wanted to write it out. They're not wrong by writing it that way. It's still grammatically correct either way you write it, because you will see the other way sometimes too as well throughout the Bible. You'll see both ways, depending on the writer, right? Depending on who, Isaiah might write different than Nehemiah, different times. You know what I'm saying? Malachi may write different than Ezekiel, different brothers, different times. All right, you guys kind of get the point. Like for an example, we don't speak the same way and write the same way of some of our ancestors, even in the English. The way we speak now is not how we used to speak back in the 30s and 40s. They wrote differently. They spoke differently. It was just of the time. So that's common. Okay. So ahawab, but you notice how I was able to say, oh, that means love. Of course, it's beloved, but it still means love. Be loved. That's what they said, but it still means love. That's the verb to love, ahab, but it's ahawab, ahawab. All right. I believe in this case, it's being used. It's a verb, but it's being used as a noun in this case. I believe. Let me see. I believe it's using as a verb or a love, because sometimes our nouns and verbs can be. Um, I believe it's using as a verb. I believe. Okay, yeah, it's still being used as a verb. Now, sometimes ahab could be used as a noun. All right, but it'll let you know, and you'll see the context of it. But ahawab is definitely the verb because you can see it is being conjugated, and only verbs get conjugated and not nouns. But ahab could be used as a noun. Be like, like that's my love. Ahabya, my love. That's a noun. You're using love as a noun and not a verb. You guys get that too, right? I'm sure y'all do. And so you would be reading it just like this: Kamawa, Wahawab, La'al, Lahayawa, Haya, it's like waya thanawa alahayam malak alka yasha'ala dam afwa hakata ya'awa. All right, hanashim hanakar yawa. All right. Now you've seen how I did that, right? Nakar yawa. All right, hanakar yawa. You want to be able now, of course, each of these I pretty much know. All right, I believe this is alahayam, but it's alahayawa. All right, la alahayawa, meaning two alahayawa. All right, but of course, it comes from the word alahayam, but that what at the end is that his that you see right there. And so what you would do is you would drop the ma and you would just put the wa in la alahayawa, meaning of his God or his power. You guys see how that's being done, right? Because that's a possessive pronoun. You see that example of the possessive pronoun? Did you guys see that example of a possessive pronoun within a sentence? Count most in Christ. All right. So you guys want to be aware of that. So that's why, you know, like you want to study this and you want to put it into your notes. All right. Make sure y'all put that into your notes. All right, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna give y'all time to copy that real quick. If not, have not already. But give me 1 second. All right, come. So now remember, you got your slocket about that. You got your afya, your afka, your afwa, your afha, your afnawa, your afkam, your afkam, your afma, and your afna. Now everybody does understand how that works, right? Everyone's aware. Make sure you guys put this into your notes. All right, make sure you guys put into your notes. I sent that study material to y'all brothers. Study that. Use it every day and study it. Because now, since you guys have that study material and you guys are coming to class every Friday, I might just ask some questions for y'all, especially when it comes to knowing those verbs. Right? I might ask you what verb means this and what verb means that, so we can use it as an example in class. So make sure y'all stay on top of that and study that. All right. If you guys have any questions on how to pronounce something, you're not fully aware how to pronounce it or how to spell it, whatever the case may be, ask that question when you're studying that material. All right. With that, I say shalom. Israel, with the Israelite School, Universal Practical Knowledge, started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Command Junior Hunter. All right. Shalom.